Welcome back to Beyond the Tube. Today we have another Tubey mum joining us, and I'm very thankful for her time that she's giving us today to discuss her beautiful daughter, Mila, who is another Tubey kid. She's going to go through some of the journey that Mila and the family have been on. I'm really thankful that we've been able to work a time together because I am just north of Sydney in Australia, and Michelle is located in New York in America. So we've had to navigate some time differences. I am very thankful that we've managed to work it out, and I really, really, truly believe this is really going to help parents who are on their journey or maybe starting their journey. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, I would love it if we could just talk about who you are and what Mila's journey has looked like. Where did it start? How are things going? That kind of thing.
Mila is my first and only child. I got pregnant a little bit later. I got pregnant at 34 because I have Hashimoto's disease and I also have PCOS. So it took me a while to get pregnant with her. It was a normal pregnancy. Everything was okay. She came about 10 days early, which was kind of weird because I was not expecting that. they're like, oh no, you're not going to be early. I'm like, I think something's happening, guys. So we were in the hospital. I was in the hospital from like about 6 a.m. and I ended up getting a C-section because they said of failure to progress.
Yes. Yep. Been there as well.
Yeah. I'm like, thank you. I feel like a failure already.
Yeah,
That's
a failure.
wonderful.
I know.
Like, thank
That's
you.
right. It's not a nice term, is it?
No, it's not. I gave birth to her about 9:51 at night. I don't remember that first night because it was I was exhausted. So I don't remember anything about that night. But I do remember the next morning, it was about like 7 o'clock and we woke her up and I tried to breastfeed her and I noticed she couldn't latch on. I mean, it was like what I imagine like it feels to have like a piranha there.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not a good time. But I was going to do it. But then at this point, I just need to get her to eat something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So almost immediately from that first feeding, they had given us those, little baby bottles.
Yes.
Something was off. I mean, she took a couple sips and she was spitting it out, moving it away. And then when we brought her home, pretty quickly, we noticed something just wasn't right with her feeding. We were thinking, well, she's a newborn baby. She should want to eat, sleep, and poop, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
She did not want to eat. I think the most she had in a day was maybe 17 ounces in a day.
Gosh. Yeah. Wow.
20 on a good day. Like, cause I kept record of it and everything. First, the first couple months we went to the pediatrician and they're like, oh, try this formula, try that formula, try different formulas. We tried different positions, different bottles, different nipples, like pray to God, pray to whoever I had to. Nothing would work. Nothing. I mean, it got so bad that like whenever it was feeding time, like me and my husband both like make excuses. I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. He's like, no, I gotta go. I'm like, I know I don't mean to sound as rude as it
No,
is.
it's real life. It's stressful.
It was horrible. And then, so at about 3 months old, she was diagnosed as failure to thrive. Failure.
Yeah. Here goes failure again. Yes.
And I remember like looking at her, like at the beginning, she never lost weight, but every time we went to the pediatrician, she would be like maybe a pound heavier, couple ounces. I mean, she was just not gaining, weight. Our pediatrician told us to like take her to a pediatric GI doctor. We took a pediatric GI doctor. That doctor ran blood tests, urine tests, fecal tests, allergy tests, everything like that. We thought maybe she's allergic to formula, maybe she's allergic to milk.
Yeah.
We did all the expensive formulas. Nothing worked. So after about a month of that, of testing that way and doing different formulas, our doctor literally looked at us and she said, the GI doctor, who GI doctor is my daughter's main doctor, not the pediatrician.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can relate. Yes.
So she said, you need to put a feeding tube in this child. She's like, oh, she's not going to make it. And I'm like,
that's scary.
I am a first-time mother. I've been an aunt since I was 17 because my sister is 13 years older than me. I've seen my friends have babies, and nobody had ever gone through anything like this. So I was asking, but nobody had any solutions for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had gone into the hospital. So we were admitted to the hospital that night. We were there for about 2 days. They were going to put an NG tube in at first. And then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's run some more testing. They did more blood tests, and then the next morning they're like, we want to run an MBS, a modified barium swallow study. So we're like, okay. They did that and showed that she has silent aspiration, which
Okay.
okay. Now we know that she's been aspirating, so that's why she's not eating, but we don't know why. Like, why is she aspirating? So they're like, all right, let's try to thicken her formula, see, whatever, and see how she does. So of course, the next 24 hours in the hospital, she ate like a champ. So, I mean, thick and I was like, we're like, this is it, thick and fees. Okay, we're done.
We're
That was
good.
it.
It's worked. Problem solved.
They sent us home. No feeding tube.
Yep.
I remember it was a Friday morning. From Friday morning till Sunday night, she ate 9 ounces of food. Nine ounces. That's one feeding.
That's terrible. That's
I
terrible.
was hysterical. Monday
Mm.
morning, I called the doctor. I said, I'm like, we're coming back. You're admitting us, and we need a feeding tube. So she ended up getting her feeding tube. She got the NG tube. Then they told us to do, they said do thickened feeds, and they said whatever she doesn't finish, put through the tube. Anybody with a kid and an NG tube will tell you that the second that NG tube goes in, oral aversion becomes like that's their life. So
Yes.
she very quickly gave up eating anything by mouth. Anytime she even saw a bottle or a bib, I mean, she would scream.
Ugh.
It was horrible. And then now looking back at it, like the one test that did confirm her diagnosis was a triple scope, which is where she had the
Yes.
under anesthesia, the
Mm-hmm.
ENT, pulmonology, and GI work together.
Yep. Yes. Ezra had the same thing.
They didn't do that until she was a little over a year old because
Yep.
it's an invasive test, but
That's
it's
right.
like hindsight, this would have saved us a year of other invasive testing, pointless feeding therapy because we're like, okay, she needs feeding therapy because there's something feedingly wrong with her. She got her NG tube, and I don't know about you, but I hated NG tube life. I hated it. I mean,
Same.
it was messy, and she's like 4 or 5 months old now, so she's at the point where she discovers she has hands. I would I would put her in those pajamas with the mittens and then put gloves over that, and she would still go like
They're like Houdinis.
I mean, like, I would turn around and I'm like, something's missing. I'm like, oh, you took your tube out.
There are so many parents sitting here watching and listening this right now going, yes,
Yes.
us
Yeah.
too.
How she did it, I don't know. I
I
have you
agree.
like quadruple gloved. So after about a month of that horrendous life, and then the ports used to cut, like, because, we had to leave the
Oh,
tube on. So we would tape it
yep.
down her back. The ports would
Yes.
leak all the time.
Yep.
Her face would be raw from tape
Mm-hmm.
change. It was absolutely horrible. And then for us to change the tube, me and my husband have to swaddle her, hold her down with every power in us.
Yes.
It was traumatic. I mean, I can't
The
imagine what it was
medical
like for.
trauma is real. It is real.
I'm that is something I'm still experiencing today, and I'm really
Hmm.
trying hard to let go of it. But so we had seen a surgeon about a month later, and they said, "Listen, we don't have an answer right now. This looks like it's going to be more of a long term thing. Could be a year, could be 5 years, could be 10 years. We don't know."
We don't
They said,
know. Yeah.
"Would you like to go the G tube route?" Now, my husband was very, very hesitant. He's like, I'm not putting my kid through surgery because she had already been under anesthesia once for an MRI. And he's like, I don't want to put her in. It's a surgery. It's
Yeah, that's
scary.
right.
I'm the one, my husband obviously like cares, loves our daughter a lot, but
Of course.
he's the only one that works. I was working until I had her, and then I had to quit because I had become her primary caretaker. I did all the research. Look, I have a notebook. This is all years worth of notes.
I mean, it's good. It's good that you've got that. It's very good. I wish
I,
I'd written more of our stuff down. I
it's
didn't do that, and I should have.
I did everything I could think of. I just did just so I can look back on it if I ever needed to. And doctors love me because when they see this, they're like, "Oh my god, now we have something to look." They're like, "This is awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
It's also
Thank you.
Mila's story, right? So one day when
Yeah,
she's old enough to understand, you'll actually be able to sit there with her and go through it. And I think that's actually pretty
that
special.
that is a big part of it. I want her to know one day how. I mean, I tell her every day now, like she's 4. She's not fully verbally. Her language is delayed and speech is delayed because
Yes.
that first important year of her life, we weren't doing flashcards or watching Miss Rachel. We were like trying to stay alive and things like that. So And that's something else. Another thing that I'm sure other parents wrestle with is the guilt of that. I feel horrible, even though I know there's nothing I could have done. You
Yes,
know,
absolutely not.
it's like my option was keep my child alive or get her to learn her ABCs. And it's like,
Yes, that's right. Which one's going to take you? I think it's pretty
yeah,
obvious. Yeah.
yeah. So, but after she got the G tube, I mean, I love the G tube.
Me too.
I think I changed the NG tube once, and every other time I went to the doctor to do it because the thought of me popping into her lungs scared the crap out of me. The G tube, I'm like, I could do it with my eyes closed.
100%.
And it's
Yep.
so funny. Even now, when I do feedings at night or whatever, I could do it with the lights off. And my mother in law, I went to visit her last summer in Croatia. She's like, "Can you see?" I'm like, "Yes, I could do this, literally blindfolded." Like it's just like it becomes second nature, you know.
Yes.
She had the triple scope, and then we found out that she had a cleft. So she was about a year, a
Hmm.
little over a year old when we found the cleft.
Yes.
They first did injections on her, the filler injections, just temporarily to see if it would help. So we did the filler injections, and they also did a supraglottaloplasty as well on her,
Yep. Yep.
because she had extra tissue in her airways, and they did the injections, and about 2 weeks after that, she had her third swallow study, which was a conditional pass, meaning she's like she didn't pass it, but she did pass it because the fillers were helping to
Of
prevent her
course.
from
Yes.
aspirating. So once we saw that, the doctor's like, "Listen, we can go ahead and proceed with surgery." So about 3 months later, we did the laryngeal cleft repair and the supraglottaloplasty at that time together. It was almost like a relief because we finally had an answer. This is what's been plaguing our existence. She did the surgery. After she healed, we did a fourth swallow study, and she passed. And she
Yeah.
passed. I mean, we had been in that hospital room 3 times in that year. Every time they told me she failed, and I would just drop to the floor because when I hear, your child failed, I take it as I failed.
Yep. Yep. I hear you.
It's so hard because people tell parents and mothers don't feel guilty. And it's like, how could you not? I mean, I couldn't. I looked at this helpless little baby and I'm just like, what did I do? I didn't eat enough vitamins. I was convinced that it was something that I did, but they're like, it's congenital. It just happens because it would
Yeah.
happen to me. Nobody else. Meaning, I mean, I know I'm not alone in this, but I mean, like in my family and friends, nobody's
Yes.
ever had a medically complex baby.
Yep. I'm
I'm
the
the first.
same. Yep.
I was like, I don't know if I should feel proud or like
You
it's,
should. Now, yes. Then
but
maybe not so much. But now,
it,
yes.
it was difficult because all I remember from those first years, like actually the first 2 years, is just isolation. And I couldn't go anywhere because I couldn't take my child anywhere because she was always going to have some procedure, so she couldn't get sick. Going to my friend's house for a couple hours was a big deal because I would have to take a pole, me, a pump, her chair that she eats in, uh, towels in case she throws up because she doesn't have a confirmed diagnosis, but she has this random vomiting episodes. Why I don't know.
Same. Ezra does too.
She tested negative for
Same.
EOE. She actually just had her
Yep.
follow up endoscopy biopsy a couple weeks ago. Negative for EOE. They don't think it's CVS, so we don't know. And it's just it was very hard in the beginning because you know as much as like my family and friends tried to understand, they didn't.
They
And
don't know. Yeah.
and it's hard because all you want is just someone to reach out to be like, what do I do? Help, and
Yeah. Where do I go for help? Yeah.
And I remember my GI doctor told us, she's like, "Why don't you join a couple of groups on Facebook?" And I did, and I'm telling you, I found my people. I have mothers that I text. We don't even live in the same state, and
Love
we
that.
text each other all the time. I don't even think like my family and friends wouldn't be as insulted when they hear that because they know like I reach out. I reach out to
No.
them all the time, but it's like when
Yes.
I'm in the throes of like I don't know, panicking about something or I have a tube question, I'm gonna ask someone who I know knows the answer.
Yep. And gets it, right? Like it's just someone
Yeah.
who is living the journey and understands exactly where you're coming from.
I have a close group of friends, there's about 8 of us, and almost all of us have kids, and, like, they're relatively the same age. The oldest, I think, is 8. And it's just so funny because it's like I watch them be born and grow up and what they went through. And I'm like, my path is completely different. If you asked me to bottle feed a baby right now, I would have no idea what I'm doing.
Right?
I'm like,
I hear
I mean,
you.
give me your kangaroo pump, give me an infinity pump, give me a feeding tube, got you. But
Yeah.
bottle, I don't know. How do I burp a baby?
Do you find that when you pick up like kids now, my best friend
I
had a
do this.
baby 12 months ago. I exactly. I pick him up and I'm like,
This.
"Oh, he doesn't have a G tube, but in
Yeah.
my head, he has a G tube."
Yeah. That's exactly right. I was holding my son's baby and I immediately picked him up like this. And I'm like, wait a
Yes.
minute. I'm like, I don't
There's
have
no
to,
G
but
tube.
no, and it's weird because I am
Yeah.
programmed to think that there's something there.
Same. Same. It's unbelievable how quickly we adapt, right? Like
Yeah.
I look back now and think at the time, it felt catastrophic. It felt overwhelming. It felt like our world was ending. And I
Yeah.
think you resonate with that, right? And
Absolutely.
now I look at it and I think, "Oh, it's so easy and it's so normal. And now I expect everybody else to have one."
I know. I know. I will never hold a baby and not go like this because
Same, same. Isn't that so funny?
I'm just programmed to be careful, you know?
I want to know. Obviously, we just touched on some of the hardest parts and, having to make those decisions around not going to your friend's house because Mila couldn't get sick and having to cancel play dates and things like that because you couldn't risk infection or there was an appointment you had to go to. And again, I
Hmm.
feel like all of us medical parents are all sitting here going, been in that boat or we're going through it at the moment. I feel like some of those things are the hardest parts, the exclusion, the isolation, the feeling left out. The
Yeah.
medical stuff is its own package, but those things which are, normal, we're humans, we want to be around other humans, and so do our babies and our kids. I guess from your perspective, do you feel like those bits are the hardest parts of the journey or do you feel like the medical stuff has been harder?
No, I think the medical stuff is a walk in the park because compared to other things, because like you know, like you said, like my daughter now, I mean, she's a very happy kid and she loves playing, but she's still not at the point where she likes to parallel play with other kids. She doesn't like.
Yes.
She doesn't get, oh, you want to play hide and seek? Let's play hide and seek. Or that's because I've had to isolate her. And it's like, again, I feel horrible, but
Mhm.
I didn't have a choice. So like
That's right.
tried to socialize her as much as I could. You know, like I took her out. You know, I still do this, but I would take her out with me to the supermarket just so she could see other people.
Yes.
Or a couple times when I did decide to brush off my shoulders and drag the pump with me, I would take her to my cousin's house with her three younger kids just so she can be and feel being around the kids. But yeah, no, that was definitely the toughest part. And now it's like I feel I keep telling people her medical reason for having the tube is gone.
Yes.
Now her issue is psychological. She was diagnosed with ARFID and PFD. People still ask me, "Well, is she gonna have the tube forever?" If I had a dollar for every time somebody asked me this question over the last 4.5 years, I could retire now easily. I could retire.
I
And I
hear
know
you.
you know people mean well. People don't mean
Of
anything
course.
bad by it. But it's like when you're going through it for so long, you're just like,
What about they'll eat when they're hungry enough? How
yeah,
many
yeah,
times
yeah.
have you heard that one?
Uh-huh. That or give them to me. I'll get them to eat. I'm like, "Okay.
I'll get them to eat. Yeah, sure.
Sure. Sure, sure,
Go
sure."
for it.
Mhm.
Go for it.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes
Have it.
I actually
I'll see you in 6 months or
yes, yes. Yeah, let me know when you're done with the baby and how it went. But yeah, no.
That's right. That's right.
That and then what else is my favorite thing? Not many people have said this, but I have heard a couple people who are like, "Oh, that
Yes.
must be," yeah, and they're joking, but they're like, "It must be so easy. Just plug your kid in and feed them."
Huh?
I'm like, No, my kid's not a cell phone that I charge. You know,
Yeah, that's right.
this is how she eats." Again, I know some people mean it as like a joking way, and like I have learned to let
Or
a
they're
lot
just
roll.
ignorant. They don't
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
I've learned to let a lot roll off my shoulders over the years, but I mean, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I plugged my kid in.
Um, I know. Yeah. Okay.
I would give anything not to have my kid do that, but at
Sure.
the same time, I've been trying very hard over the last 4.5 years to normalize feeding tube, feeding spring, feeding tube awareness. Like this was never part of my like, this is not on my bingo card for life. Like,
No.
I did not see this coming, but, you know, I just felt like as soon as I knew something was wrong and she was first getting her tube, I'm just a Joe Schmo, like, I'm not anyone exciting, but I just started posting, like, little things on my Facebook page just to, like, kind of update people, and I would have people that I know who I hadn't talked to in years message me like, "Listen, my kid's having some issues with this." Like, they might not have a feeding tube, but they were looking to me to ask me questions and ask me, my opinion. And I'm like, okay, like, listen, I'm no like Kim Kardashian status, but I got some
You're getting
pull.
there.
Yeah, and listen, in the feeding tube world, it's like you really never know because I feel like almost everybody has some feeding issues. Like, they might not have a feeding tube,
Mhm.
but my daughter's been great. Like, she's had her feeding tube for so long that she has never, like, the NG
She
tube I
doesn't
told
know
you
any
that.
different,
Yeah,
right? She
that
knows
thing
no
was
different.
like, that like magic trick with, like, the that was her in the NG tube. That was just
Yeah,
this.
100%.
But the G tube, knock on wood, G tube she never touched. She's
That's
just like,
good. That's so
she
good.
the only thing she does is, like, when I, because I still always keep split gauze around it just to catch, like, a little bit of leakage. So when I take it off to clean it and she gets her finger in there, she starts, like, itching. She, like, will itch it and, like, lift it up. I'm like, "Do not flick that out." I'm like, "Please don't do that." Like,
I think it's part of them exploring, right? Ezra and Mila are the same age. And like literally, again, I already knew this because I've already read the publications that have been written on Mila's story.
yeah,
But Ezra's story is identical. Like he's had the same
yeah,
surgeries. He's everything. Everything's the same. The laryngeal clefts, the glossoplasty, all of those things. We've done it too.
yeah,
The RFID, the PDF, all of the
mhm,
same things. Everything's the same. So, um, it's interesting listening to you talk about it because for me, even though I'm as far into the journey as you are, I still feel those moments. Like as you're talking about it, I go back to when we went and did our first MRI. Or when we went and did the G tube with Ezra, which would have been around the same time as Mila. It's so reassuring that there is
yeah.
someone who understands, and it would have been helpful to have had that resource at the time when I was actually living it and needed to talk to somebody. But what I hope, and again, we've discussed this, is that my hope for this podcast is that a parent starting on this journey or who is in the throes of it and is lost and is isolated and is just feeling like nobody gets it, finds this resource. Because as much as it's wonderful having experts and talking about things that are related to speech therapy, feeding therapy, blending feeds, all of that is wonderful. But what's real is you talking about a real story with your daughter and how you have lived this experience to give people solace and
Yeah.
understanding around what it actually looks like because it is a lonely, lonely path and there's not a lot of knowledge and there's not a lot of resources. And I think that that's why people say things like they'll eat when they're hungry enough or make stupid comments like, oh, that looks really easy. Just plug your kid
Yeah.
in. Like, because they got no knowledge. Nobody talks about this. You know, it's not something that's addressed in any sort of training when you're going through medical school, whether you're a nurse or a doctor. It sounds that that's pretty standard. Even in the States and Australia, it sounds like that's the same.
It's actually really funny that you say that because when she first got her NG tube, it was 2020. She was a couple months old. And I was at a pediatric hospital. My husband had gone home for the night and I was sleeping and a nurse comes in and she's like, "Oh, is she due for a feed?" I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Okay." She's like, and then she like pressed the pump, whatever. And then she left. And then she came back when the feed was over. And
Yes.
she's like, "Do you know how to unhook this?" I'm like, "Do I know how to unhook this?" I said, "My daughter just got this feeding tube like 3 hours ago." I'm like, "I'm still learning here." And so she unhooked the port from the tube, whatever, and she left the room. And I remember it was nighttime. It was three other patients in the room, and we're sleeping. Within a second, I'm like, something in my gut was like, check under the sheets. I checked under the
Didn't
sheets, and the nurse never clamped
closed it.
the feed. Everything. I'm like
Came out.
45-minute feed that my daughter just went through is now all over her bed.
My
I mean,
gosh.
you would be amazed, like, at how many, you know, honestly, I feel like even now, like not a lot of people are
100%.
educated in that in like feeding tubes. And my daughter, she was in speech therapy. Over here in America, we have something called early intervention. So when a kid is a
Hmm.
baby until like 3 years old, they get free services, whatever.
Yes.
So her speech therapist, who I'm actually still friends with, she's my babysitter. She has over the years has brought interns to me who are these are speech pathologists in training and feeding therapists in training who have not heard a lick of anything about laryngeal Malaysia, dysphagia, any of that, and they're in school now. It's 2026.
Yep.
And mind you, when I first started teaching the interns, like in 2022, 2023, like that wasn't that long ago. And I'm like, how are you, the, you know, at that time when I was just starting out doing this, I encountered so many speech therapists. Not one had seen a child with a feeding tube ever.
It happens all the time. I can remember multiple times having to take Ezra to our local hospital, which is like 5 minutes away,
Hmm.
because his NG tube had come out. Or in the early
Yeah.
days when you're like, I don't know what to do with this thing, and it's half hanging out his nose, and you're like,
Yeah.
can I touch it? I don't know. And would turn up at ED, and we'd be like, help, and they'd be like,
Hmm? Yes.
we don't, we don't, we don't know what to do. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what to do?
You're
You're
like, you're in
the
the
doctors.
hospital.
You're a hospital. We don't get many people with feeding tubes. So what? You should be
I know.
trained in how to do it, Like it's unbelievable. Like you said, it's 2026. How are
Yeah.
we still in this space where it almost feels like it's a taboo subject? Like it's like, oh, we don't want to talk about that because that's a bit
Yeah.
uncomfortable, or there's not enough people that have a feeding tube, so we'll just ignore it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just doesn't make sense to me.
2022 when she just got it, like, and she had the NG tube, and I remember, it was right around Easter time, and I took her, even though I didn't want to because it was, like, too many people, but, um, I wanted to take her to see the Easter Bunny for the first time, and the
Of
amount of
course.
people that stared at me and my child, because like, they're like, "Oh, this kid must have some serious
Cancer
disease,"
or
like,
something. Yeah, I know. This is what people used to ask me.
I have to admit myself, before I had a child with a feeding tube, I wasn't even that. I mean, I didn't have to be well versed in it. But the thing
No,
is like
same.
now I see it's like it helps to know. When I was first starting out, not that long ago, I found a couple people on Facebook, and even then, I mean, there wasn't that much. Like I didn't see any podcasts. It would have been great to
There
have.
wasn't anything there. No, same. Even our dietitian in the hospital, she actually said there's one Facebook group that's Australian based. That's it. And I was like, that's great. And I'll join it. But I mean, like, what about like other resources, pamphlets, hospital? No, they don't have anything. I was like, what do you mean? You're
Yeah,
sending my child home with me with a tube in his nose that goes down into his stomach, and I don't have anything. And she was like, yeah, that's just how it is. I am
yeah,
sorry. How is that okay?
I know.
I think the imbalance in funding around things, and I'm sure it's the same in the States,
Yeah,
they put so much money into things that have a high media focus, or there's celebrities that are attached to those foundations and things. So all the money goes into those. And I'm not saying it's not just, don't get me
yeah,
wrong, but then what happens is things like this, there are more and more kids needing feeding tubes. I don't know what it's like over in the States, but definitely here, more and more kids are being diagnosed neurodivergent. So lots of autism diagnoses. And they are struggling with ARFID a lot of the time, and they need feeding tubes. It may
hmm,
only be short term, but there's still an increase in the amount of children that are having feeding tubes. But
yeah.
how is this still such an unknown space? And you go to health providers and they don't seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's why I'm glad that, when this all started, even though I was very overwhelmed and very stressed out, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, just write it down, post it, just something. Now, for me, is the hardest part because fixing her physical issue that was the easy part. Now I got to do the psychological part. How am I supposed to tell a 4-year old who has medically based trauma around feeding that, like, you don't need this tube? You can eat.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's safe now to eat. She doesn't get it. And when I was a kid, I was force fed. So when her issue first started presenting itself, I could not bring myself to force feed her. I just couldn't do it. All I saw was like my past, and granted, it wasn't my mother doing it in a bad way. It was just
No,
that
no, no, no. Well, and it was
this
the
is
time. That's
yeah,
what it
this
was
was back
like.
in it was back in the 80s. So like mom's like, just eat, and I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't
And I
want it.
couldn't, and I think that's why it made it in the beginning that much harder for me because remember my mother-in-law was here visiting from Croatia. My mom would come by a couple times and they would be like, all right, well, we'll feed her. And they would try and they would like, just keep the bottle. And I'm like, I said, let go, please. Just stop.
Yeah,
Because
you're making things worse.
yeah, and seeing that just it broke my heart. I'm like, I cannot watch this child be like physically forced to eat. And now sometimes like I don't know about you, but like I talk to other parents and thankfully I'm not alone. And I'm curious to know what you would think about this is
Mm,
I feel a little bit guilty now because after she had her cleft repaired and the supraglotoplasty done,
yes.
she healed for 2 months and they're like, you can wean her. They're like, she's safe. So I did. I weaned her off her tube feeds. Within 3 weeks, she was eating everything: meat, fish, chicken, vegetables, anything you can think of. I actually, and I'll show
That's
you.
amazing.
It was short lived though.
Yes, yeah. Things in this world, I feel, usually are short lived.
Yeah. And see, like, I kept a journal.
Yes,
Breakfast,
I
lunch,
love that.
everything she ate, how she acted. Um, Literally 3 weeks of this.
That's so amazing.
I wrote down everything. And then one night, so for like 3 months, she was eating everything. Like the only thing was she never gained anything, which was very weird. I'm like, how are
Mm,
you eating so much food and not gaining
no weight.
anything? I couldn't even ask like my other friends because, you know, the growth chart that my daughter was on and is on is never going to be like a child who doesn't have, you know, medically complex feeding history. How much is her plate? Like, what is her food supposed to look like? How much is she supposed to be eating? Then it was like, it was almost like overnight, but like slowly, it's like somebody switched off that thing in her head that was like, okay, no, you don't eat food. You don't like eating. You don't like food. And she just stopped. And we had to go back to full tube feeds. And I was hysterical. I mean, I would sit there and watch her and she would cry and I'm trying to give her food and I'm just like, I can't,
I'm
I
not going
can't.
back to this force feeding thing again. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've done all the feeding therapy. I've done she's been feeding therapy from when she was a couple months old to about a year. Then I weaned her. That was her own little feeding therapy, like at home, because we did a program online. And then we had her. There's a hospital near me for children that has the top feeding program in New York State, which took 2 years to get into. Two
Wow.
years. She graduated on purees though, because they said with her because of her age they said the best way to get calories and volume in her is through purees. And then last year she was like, "Nope, I'm done with purees." And I couldn't blame her. I'm like, if I look at a puree, one more puree, I'm like, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm like,
Yes.
I couldn't look at purees anymore. And then so that is something that I'm feeling guilty about because I'm just like, I feel like I'm kind of sensing what other people are thinking. Like other people who are not in this community, they're like, why aren't you like trying to feed her? Like she can eat, like push harder. And it's like, I can't I can't do it.
We always offer, and Ezra's doing quite well at the moment. I wouldn't say great, but I've been like you. I've gone, yay, he's doing great. This is amazing. And then it all comes crashing down. And I think there's things like, illness, if they get a cold or if they get a tummy bug or if they get some sort of illness, they just go off a cliff. And not just their weight, it's their willingness to even have a feed is hard to manage. Once we knew everything was safe, which obviously is the key message here, you need to make sure that everything is safe for your kid. But once you know it's safe, I have always done offer food at the time of feed. So I would feed him and give him food so that he started to make that psychological, even if he didn't eat it, that's
Yeah.
okay. If he picked it up, touched it, licked it, played with it, whatever, whether it was a puree, it was a sausage, it was some cheese, it was something that was inside the blend I could offer, or even if
Yeah.
it wasn't, just so that it started to make that psychological connection of tummy feeling full, food goes in the mouth. So that connection started to happen. this is all just me. Like, this is not me being told. This is just me making some assumptions,
Mhm.
which I feel like has over time has helped and has worked because he's much better at that now and will actually
Oh.
sit and try things. Or when we all sit at the table together and we have dinner, he gets a bowl of pasta. No, he gets some noodles, things that
Mhm.
are really dissolvable and easy for him to eat. So if he does want to give it a go, it's there. But some days he's so overwhelmed by everyone eating around him, he will lose it. He loses it. He
Mhm.
gets really, really angry, and is like, get away from me, move away from me." So he'll have to go somewhere else when we're all eating because he's so overwhelmed by food.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It's a real thing.
the last year I've taken a different approach where and it took a lot for me to get to this point. My husband works a lot. My daughter is now she's in school, but all of her feeding issues and everything is on me. I I was just tired of like dreading feeding time or listening to her cry, like not because I didn't want to listen to her cry, but just it broke my heart. And I'm just like, What am I doing?" Up until this point, I've done everything. I've done feeding therapy. I've done strict regimen, timers, scales to weigh her food, how much she ate. Now the last year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going with the flow.
Yeah, good on you.
She used to be able to. She would eat a whole slice of pizza. Now, last week she licked it. I was like, yes,
Yay, go
and
girl. Yes,
that's fine. That's fine. I'm like, you know
I'm
what?
with you.
I'm now just now coming to terms with realizing that my child is tube fed and she has a tube not because she's a picky eater, but because she has been through XYZ her whole life and she still needs it. If and when one day
And
she
she'll
eats my
need it
mouth,
for as long as she needs it. Like, it is what
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
And I think that that's a hard thing to come to realization of, is that there's there's no end, right? It's not like someone said, "On the 15th of March, she's not gonna have a tube anymore,"
yeah,
and there's an end to it. We've got no
yeah.
idea how long this is gonna go on for, and it just goes as long as it goes, and that is hard as a parent to accept.
I feel like a lot of people also see the feeding tube as I don't want to get too graphic, but like like she's almost gonna get addicted to her feeding tube.
Yeah,
Like
right, yeah.
I'm not feeding her; she's gonna
It's
get
the easy
addicted.
way so that she'll
Yeah,
never eat again.
I'm
Yeah,
like
right, yeah,
that's
sure.
not how it
So she has
works.
that kind of cognitive connection with a feeding tube. Like,
Yeah.
again, this is because there is such a lack of knowledge in the community
Hmm.
about feeding tubes, why people have
Yeah.
them, why do they need them? It's not just because they're sick and dying of some sort of incurable disease or you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, there
Yeah.
are so many reasons for people to have feeding tubes, and in our case, our kids have gone through massive medical trauma, through all these medical complexities that makes them afraid. They're scared. They're scared. She was a baby. She couldn't say to you, "Oh, mom, that doesn't feel like it's going down the right way." You know, at
Hmm.
least when they get to this age, they can start to communicate with you and say, like, they hold their throat or they make a funny noise or they grimace, and you
Yeah.
know something's not quite right and it feels uncomfortable or unsafe. But when they're babies, there's no way for you to know. There's no
No.
way. So you're just being led by medical professionals that you hope know what they're doing,
Yeah.
which is
And
scary.
I document everything. If you've realized that by now.
Yes, yes, I've noticed.
I have a journal and I'm not trying to be like a neurotic parent, but it's like I that's just how my mind
I
works.
think
Like
it's great.
I need to write things down. I like to have it and I'm also gonna show you something really funny. As much as I'm okay with my daughter's journey and everything, I am looking forward to the day where I don't have to keep a log.
Yep, I hear
This
you.
this is 2 years worth of information, and then I have my binder
Mhm.
that I have now. I'm like,
Yep,
I don't know what it's like to be a parent and not write down
and
what
have to
my
carry all this stuff with you every time you go to an appointment, every time you go to a
I'm like,
hospital,
"Hi,
every time you
doctor."
walk out of the house. Yeah, you're like,
I'm
"Hi,
like, "Hi,
here's
doc."
all my stuff."
Like, it's
Mind
just
you, but
it
like you say, doctors and medical professionals respond well to people who have the information that they may
yeah.
need. I've started transferring all of my stuff, it is a slow process, into the Heba app so
Oh,
that I can just carry the app rather than have all the paperwork.
Yeah.
But I do wish, looking back now, retrospectively, and hindsight's wonderful because it's already happened, but I wish I'd written down more. I wish I
Yeah.
had put that more into writing. I think that that's a really good tip for parents,
It's funny
write it
because
down.
my husband still makes fun of me because he's like, you could just do this like on the computer. I'm like, I know that. And I have an app, but for me, I need to physically write because like if
That's
you could just
nothing
if
wrong with
see
that.
like take any notes on
Yes.
how she acted that day. If
Yeah.
if she was low energy and sick, if she vomited, how like I have to write everything down. Right now it seems like a lot of work, but then when the time comes and she has an issue since she was a baby with constipation, I can tell you from date of birth until right now, every day how her poop's been like.
That's
Gross to
so
other people.
good.
Gross to other
No,
people,
not really.
not gross to me
Not
and
to
you
us.
because
Yeah.
I'm like, if her poop looks a different way today, I'm like, something's
What
going on
caused that?
inside. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can figure it out.
I feel like that's a really good tip for parents who are on this journey, whether at the beginning, middle, or maybe heading to the end, to keep a log in whatever way that looks like, whether that's you typing it on a document, saving it in an app, or writing it down. I
Yeah.
think that's a really, really good tip.
I feel like some people look at this massive pile of papers like that is so overwhelming. And I understand how it could be overwhelming. For me, though, it's not. Like everybody's different. If every day it makes you feel better to write like just a couple little notes, that's fine. Write that down. I need to have it written down. Like, I mean, I have from when she wakes up, what time I gave her her first tube feeding, if she ate by mouth, when she pooped.
Mhm.
Not every parent is going to do this. And I don't expect every parent to do it.
No,
But
of
for
course
me,
not.
it made a huge difference, especially because of her very complex history.
Yes.
I need to have things written down. She could be doing great with her tube feeds, and then this random vomiting happens, and I cannot give her tube feeds because she will throw it up. That's why the stomach virus scares me more than
Hmm.
anything in the world because it is disaster for us. Disaster.
Yep.
When I go to other kids' birthday parties, I'm like, does anybody have a
Yep.
stomach virus?
I just walk around with hand, like I literally just like,
Yeah.
Ezra, sanitizer, Ezra, sanitizer, Ezra, sanitizer.
Okay. It's
It's,
right.
yeah,
It's in my pocket right now.
100%. Yeah, mine, I carry one in the car,
Yeah.
one in his tubey bag, one in
Everywhere.
my handbag. We've got them all through the house. Like, I know it seems, my friends always used to make fun of me for the amount of hand sanitizer. I've been doing it
Hmm.
since my daughter, who's 17, was born in 2009, before hand sanitizer was really a thing. I was on it. Like, I've been on it for a long time.
Yeah.
But now, having a medically complex kid, I feel it's really important that people
Mhm.
ensure that they're not bringing viruses into our home. We're not taking, I pulled him out of preschool last week for 3 days because they had gastroenteritis going around. And I was like, nope,
I I did the same thing.
no,
I did the
I
same
am
exact
not
thing.
risking it.
And even like
Not
my
worth
mom's
it.
like, "She's not in school." I'm like, "No, no. What is she missing? Physics in pre-K?"
Yeah.
And like,
But
I'm like,
But even if she was, what's the risk to her health? Is it worth it? Because that one bug that, you or I pick up, we're over it in a couple of days and we move on. We're talking weeks, if not months, for these
mhm.
kids to get
Yep.
fully recovered and just back to where they were. We're trying to get them up in weight and up in height and increase nutrition. One hit like that for them is months of feeds literally down the toilet.
I have in my log sheets here, I have when she got in September 2024. I mean, she's gotten the stomach virus since then as well, but I remember in like 2024, I wrote it down and it for those few weeks after she got it,
Mhm.
her weight dropped. And that's how sensitive she is. We used to do the pump, then we did bolus, and now we do syringe. Syringe is quick, and she can handle it, which also makes having a social life a little bit easier because it's probably take pre-filled syringes, feed her, goodbye. Don't have to run to
Yep.
attach her to the pump or
Off you go.
whatever. It's so hard because I never thought of myself that I'm going to be like that hovering helicopter mom, and I'm not. I try not to forget, I try to think to myself, I want my child to grow up as normally as possible, as different as she is.
Yes.
So sometimes even like my husband's like, if we're going to a birthday party, he's like, just leave the 2 feet at home. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna leave the 2 feet at home. Because
Yep.
why?
Yes.
She
She
needs
needs to
to
eat too, like
yeah, it's like,
everybody else.
you have these kids sitting there like eating slices of pizza. obviously my kid's not going to eat that, so she has to eat. She's in the middle of playing. I'm not going to be like, Mila, come on, like I gotta give you a
Yeah, I
tube
know.
feed, like.
Same. I don't do
But
that either.
I don't like to hide it. People know, they know her, they know our history, they know her journey, and it is what it is. I'm like, I'm not going to be that parent where I'm like, oh, I'm like, I don't want to take a tube feed with me. I have to because that's how my child eats. And in the past couple months, I've gone to a christening. I brought a tube feed with me. And that's actually a funny thing, which I kind of wish more people would be aware of. You know how they have rooms, for breastfeeding mothers or whatever.
Yes.
Whenever I go somewhere, I'm like, do you have anywhere where I could lay my child down to feed? And the answer is almost always no.
Yep.
One thing that I'm trying to talk to different people and see, like, how can I make this happen? It's funny because I feel like some people are like, okay, well, it's just two feet. I feel like it's not seen as like that level of importance. But it's like,
Yes.
to me, and to other parents who do have kids like this, it is. When I went to the christening and I had to give her tube feed, I had to go into the bridal suite,
Yeah. Right.
and it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying that every place of business needs to now, like,
No. No.
do
No. It doesn't need
construction.
to
And
be everywhere. Yeah.
it's just, I just wish like more places like, but it's just funny. It's like places like that where like, you're having events where you have people coming, and you have people bringing their kids. Like
Hmm.
I mean, the room doesn't have to be like specific for tube feeding. It's just so it's
No.
an
No. No.
area where like, you have women who, if they have to breastfeed, if they have to do
That's right.
whatever, or just, and somewhere where I can lay my child down and feed
And
her.
not have it be a toilet.
Yes. I regrettably have had to do that a couple times. Sick, like all.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. The other thing is, I think with a lot of our tube kids, is that they vomit. It
Yeah.
can make them
Yes.
sick.
Yes.
So, do you want me to feed in the middle of the christening? What
Hmm.
if she pukes?
That's.
Or what? Like it's sometimes you just need to move them away. You know what I mean, and just have them have a quiet space. And also, I think at 4 and 5 and 6, and as they get older, and who knows how long these journeys will go on for, sometimes they don't want the whole world to look at them. And they don't want to
Yeah,
be fed in front of
exactly.
everybody because they are aware at 4 that they're being
Yeah.
fed in a different way. And they don't want it to be a performance. They don't want to be a circus clown. They want to have some privacy. And also, you've got to lift up their shirt. You've got to put, you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you have to be mindful of that.
I think that's the issue that my husband has is like it's not that he's like, oh, like I don't want people seeing us two feeder. It's that he feels bad. 'Cause like you said, like even though it's second nature, as soon as I take out a syringe and I tell my daughter, can you go lay down on the couch? Lays down, shirts like this, we're good to go. But I agree with you. I really do wish that we had somewhere to do this where she could have a sense of privacy. Because like, listen, let's say,
Yeah.
she saw the Super. I'm not going to
Hmm.
make her lift her shirt in front of everybody at a
No,
party when she's 10 years old. Like, I want to give her some privacy.
that's right.
But yeah, that's the other thing for me.
And at least give her the option and the power to make that choice.
Yeah.
It's not saying that every kid that needs to be tube fed needs to have privacy and needs to be removed from whatever situation they're in order to be fed. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
It is having the ability to be able to take them somewhere quiet and private if you need to, that is not a toilet. Like, would you like to go and
Yeah.
sit in a public bathroom and
No,
eat? Because if the answer to that is no, then my kid is not being fed
I agree.
in a room. It's like asking a breastfeeding mother to feed
Hmm.
their baby sitting on a toilet.
I
You're not
know.
going to ask
Yeah.
them to do that. So don't expect me to feed my child with a tube the same way. Again, I think it just all comes back to there's not enough resources, there's not enough money being spent, there's not enough people that know enough about tube feeding. That's ultimately what it boils down to.
Yeah. And I think that's why things like this, like the podcasts, the Facebook groups, talking about it makes a big difference. My sister works at a school, and she shares everything that I post. I told her, I was like, I'm recording a podcast. Like, so she's like, tell me when it's on. I'm going to, you know, spread it around, and like, and
Awesome.
it's, her, so I have never met any of her coworkers, and yet they know so much about me and my story, and they're like, what's next? I'm like, well, thank you. Um,
Beautiful.
but
That's
it's,
real. And I have found a lot of feedback I get from the podcast is it's actually a lot of people who don't have anything to do with tube fed kids, us listening or watching. because they're interested. They want to know and they want to understand and they want to be able, maybe it could be their kid who has a baby, their grandchild that they may have to look after at some point or want to be able to support, that ends up with a tube. And hey, I've got all this information now and I know all of this stuff. Just because it doesn't affect you today doesn't mean it's going to affect you in the future. As you pointed
Yeah.
out earlier, you'd been an aunt for how long? How many of your friends had kids and no one had ever seen this before?
Nope.
And then it happened to you. So, all of those people now know all about Mila's journey, and if it happens to a friend of theirs or a family member of theirs, they've got all this information. They understand it, not to a minute degree like we do because we live
Mhm.
it, but they have some understanding. They have some ability to be able to support you or
Yeah.
whoever it may be. That's really important when you're talking about school teachers getting on board and understanding, because yeah, they might not have a kid in their class ever that has a tube, but they might have in the future. And if they do and they know this information, what a difference that'll make.
Yeah. But that's why I feel like such a sense of like pride when I think about how many of those interns that my speech therapist has introduced me over the years. And like I have these fresh faced in school SLPs in training. When they sit there and they tell me, you have taught me more than my professor did in a span of 30 minutes. It feels so good to hear that,
Mm.
because then it makes me feel like maybe I am making like a little bit of a difference. I don't care if
You are?
I don't need to change the world, but it's like if I could help just a few people along the way,
Yes.
I could go to sleep every night with a smile on my face.
I feel the same way.
I have never felt more of a sense of community than I have when I first became a medical parent, especially being in this like feeding tube community.
Yes.
It's unreal. I mean, I love my family, I love my friends, but it's different when you have people all around the world that I could just reach out to be like,
Yeah.
my pump is doing this. Can you help? And it's like, they're like, yeah, I got you. Or,
Yep.
I mean, I've sent
Or
supplies
you've
to
just had a
people.
really crappy day, or, there's been a lot of vomiting today, or I just don't want to be a tubey parent today. It's just really hard. And you
Yeah.
can talk to someone who's like, mate, I was there last week. I get it. I get you. And I
Hmm.
feel you, and let it all out. And you can talk to someone who understands. I cannot tell you how many people said to me, you really should go and see a psychologist. You should really go and talk to somebody. And I was like, talk to somebody who has no idea what I'm going through. How
Yeah.
is that helpful to me? So I just have to keep repeating what happened to Ezra over and over and over again to somebody who has no idea. That just, I don't want to talk.
Yeah.
Like if there was someone who was like, I have lived the experience, I get you, different story. Yet to find anybody.
That's so funny because I get told the same thing. Like everyone's like, you really need to see a therapist and talk to someone. I'm like, I'm aware of that. I know I have my own medical PTSD for sure.
Me too.
But I have asked around, and like you said, I haven't found anyone yet. I would like to speak to a therapist who has experience with dealing with parents and medical trauma. And I have not found
Hmm.
that yet because I don't want to talk to
Doesn't
regular
exist, I
therapists.
don't think.
Yeah.
We need to become the therapist,
Yeah,
Michelle.
we need to go get our degrees and then come
That's
back
right.
and
That's right. That's what we need to in
reconvene.
all our spare time, like we've
Yeah,
got
I have
so much spare time.
so much spare time. I mean, like, I it's
It's
just,
very funny.
I
But
mean,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
it's so funny. It's funny because it's like at this point of our in our lives, like I feel like I should have a PhD in feeding therapy, physical therapy, OT, pump programming, syringe cleaning, like
You and me both. I feel
people
you.
are like, and then
Agree.
the best like people are like, but you only have one kid. I'm like, I'll raise you your 2, 3 kids to my
Yes,
one medically complex child because that's like 10 kids in one.
I
I'm not
agree.
saying that, parents of like multiple kids, like you're busy. I get it. But I also, I get it. Like just because I have one
Yeah.
kid doesn't mean I don't know what busy is like.
No. And I've got two older kids who are not medically complex. And I can tell you it is way harder doing this than it was raising them. Even the two of them, they're only 2.5 years apart.
Mm.
And it was much easier dealing with two toddlers without medical complexities than one toddler or young kid with medical complexities. So you're right. You're right. And I speak from him being my third kid. But yeah, it's a different world, the world we live in, and we need our own support network. You obviously did what you could to make that happen, and that's worked now, and you've got to a place where you've got your network, and hopefully our episode will
Mm,
empower people to use this as a network. You can reach out to, Be on the Tube on socials. So if you do want support, and
yeah,
there's so many more Facebook groups now, and there's
I
so many
know.
more resources and so many more websites, and there is so much more today than there was in 2022,
Yeah.
which is
Which
great to see
it
progression, but
sounds
we're still a
crazy
long
though.
way.
It sounds
I
crazy when you say
know,
that.
right?
It's only 4 years ago, and it's like, we're just starting to kind of really, like, make some waves and some changes.
Headway. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
headway,
right.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I having a podcast like this, I think is phenomenal. I wish you were around like, 4 years ago when I was like,
Wish something like this was around too. What I always craved was, if this happens, what do I do? Or if something unexpected pops up, where do I go? And how do I
mm,
get that information? Or how do I hear from people who have done this before? And that's why I created the podcast. And to your earlier point, if I can go to sleep knowing I've helped one person, then this podcast has done its job,
yeah,
because that's all I want. This is a fully self-funded podcast. It is professionally edited. I pay for this out of my own pocket. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to get sponsorships, which helps, and that's great. But I do it because I've lived the experience. I've lived the isolation. I've lived the fear and the worry. And if I can help someone somewhere feel less like that, then I've done a
mm,
good job. And I've done my community service, if you will. And I want to help people. I want people like you to share their stories to help others. And where else do you go to share that? And how do you get that information out?
I just want to tell you, just personally, you have no idea how good it feels to have it's just a podcast all about tube feeding and medical complexity. Like, I'm gonna go to sleep tonight and be like, "Oh, thank God I had somewhere to tell my story." And now, again, are we gonna be reaching millions of people and, like, the president?
Yes.
I don't know, but you never know.
We can aim high. Look, it's out there for everyone to see. And who knows who's watching it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just takes one person to see it and think, this could do something. We could take this further, or maybe we need to investigate this more, or put more money into these,
Hmm.
studies and what have you. It just takes one.
The parents that are listening, especially the ones like in the beginning who have just found this, all I want them to know is like, you are not alone. When I think about the earlier days, I do have a bit of like heaviness in my heart because all I remember is being so alone. It was just me and my husband,
Hmm.
and my daughter, and we were just like, what do we do? Well, I still call my mom at 3 in the morning and be like, she's not eating. But I was like, okay, I don't know what to tell you. I really want parents out there to know, like I said, whether they're in the beginning of it, in the middle, or God willing at the end, to know that there are other people who understand you and who have been there and who are
Yep.
there,
Yep.
and you're not alone. That's just, it sounds so cheesy and cliche, but I think that's the most important thing to know is you're not alone. There's a whole community of parents just like you. So,
Yep, I agree. All
yeah.
around the world, everywhere.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
we're all available to be connected to, because we all want to help each other. And I think that's such a special part of our community, is we all want to help each other. So if you're on this journey, reach out to someone, anyone. Doesn't have to be
Mhm.
us, it could be anyone in this community, and you will get help. You will get
Yes.
advice, you will get suggestions, and you will choose to take it or not. And that's okay too. Sometimes you just want to vent. There's a lot of posts
Yeah.
I see in the Facebook groups where people are like, I'm not looking for advice. I know I need to go and see my pediatrician, or I know I need to go and see the hospital, but I just need to vent about this because I just cannot believe that it's the day before the weekend and I've got to go and sort this all out. Like,
Yeah.
whatever it is, sometimes it's just letting it out in a community of people who go, I get it. I
Yeah.
I have been there, I've lived that experience, or I can relate.
I mean, I've made plenty of posts like that where I preface it by saying like, I don't need advice, I just want to vent. And I do have people like,
Yeah.
I feel you. I just want to vent too. My kid threw up all over my couch today. And like, it is what it
It's
is.
just
Like,
the reality we live. It
yeah,
really is. It
yeah,
really is. Michelle, thank you so much
no problem.
for being on the podcast. I really think that this is going to be so helpful to so many people on this journey. And if they're not on the journey and they're just inquisitive or curious, I think that's really good too. You know, if you're a school teacher, if you're a preschool teacher, a daycare teacher, if you're in the professional medical industry, this podcast will help you to understand a little bit about what parents are going through as not just parents, as medical carers for their children.
Yeah.
So this episode is really going to resonate with a large group of people. And Mila is so lucky to have you as her mum, and what a beautiful little girl she is. You can read. I'll link the publications on our show notes as well, so people can read more about Mila's story and the journey she's been on, because again, they might help people as well. So thank you once more for joining us. Really
Thank you for having
appreciate it.
me. I really appreciate being here and just being given a platform to talk and help other people as well.
Yes. Sometimes it's nice just to talk it all through, isn't it?
Yes.
Kind of feels like a little bit of weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, now it's like I feel I just had like my therapy session.
Yeah,
Now
that's right.
I'm gonna go give my daughter her tube feed, put my pajamas on, and put her to bed. Yeah.
Thank you everybody for tuning into the podcast today. And until next time, stay safe and we'll see you soon.